Hello everyone again. Today we're going to talk about the structure of the content of the sessions in a football soccer team, okay? And I thought of this video just to help out, especially a lot of coaches, young coaches, and also the ones that have been training for a while maybe, but haven't had the opportunity maybe to receive large amount of material, information, or tools regarding this, how to structure sessions. Okay, so we basically want to talk about how we do it normally especially in Spain and I think most of these zones of Europe, like Portugal, I think it's very similar. And how we structure the sessions, how we organize the sessions as far as the different ways of doing it. Okay, and this is just like a short introduction, like I always talk about in the videos. Basically trying to help out, okay, all the coaches that don't have or have a deficit in this case, okay? And we're going to talk about basically the differences, some confusions that are generated most of the times. Okay, one of them is mixing up or confusing tactical objectives or goals and technical objectives or goals, okay? So I've had this problem, I've seen this problem a lot between many colleagues or friends who you tell them maybe, okay, we need to work on this week on a tactical concept, for example, and they tell me, for example, passing, okay, passing and control, and that's fine as far as, of course, if you're coaching just a very basic introductory level. But as far as when you're beginning to coach at a higher level, medium level, beginner's level, you have to understand that these are technical objectives or goals, and these are going to be sorted out or they're going to be worked on when you work in the super tactical dimension. These aspects, these things, these concepts, or these skills are going to be worked as well. Just you don't have to focus on them, okay? So the definitions as far as individual technique, they're all actions that a football soccer player is capable of executing with the ball in his or her own benefit without the intervention of other teammates. These actions, for example, are dribbling, shooting, heading, among many other examples. As far as collective technique, they are all the actions that two or more players of a team manage to carry out, always seeking the benefit of the team through an effective completion of the play. Okay, these actions are all the passes that are made in a play, such as succession of passes. So the basic examples, they are control and pass as far as collective technique, and for example, dribbling and shooting. Okay, these are individual technique. Okay, now. This is what I was talking about before, that when we're going to, for example, we're going to work getting free from the defender, this is going to be a technical, collective technique concept and not a tactical one. So the tactical one may be creating numerical superiority, which is a concept, right? But we're going to work on getting free from the defender. Of course, we're going to focus on it in the exercise, in the session. But it's not going to be the objective, okay? This is the main difference. What is football tactics? Tactics are all those actions, both in attacking and defensive phase, to combat or counterattack the opposing team during the match. In attack, you fight, you try to break through those defensive tactical barriers of the opponent, and in defense, you try to neutralize the tactical movements of your opponents. And the concept of individual tactics, which many people talk about now, according to Anton, the fundamental objective of tactical behavior is to find solutions for the practical resolution of the different problems posed by a competition situation. Okay, so this is one of the problems, mixing up or not having clearly what is tactics and what are technique, the technical dimension and the tactical dimension. Another problem what we see also is the difference between strategy and tactics, and also strategy, tactics, and the system or the numbers, okay? Like we talked about the functional organization last time in a video also, that these things we have to take into account. Strategy normally is the intent, while tactics is putting intent to action, okay? So strategy determines what needs to be done and why, while tactics determines how it must be done. So strategy, in other words, it's the long-term plan, okay? Involves intentional and focused high-level thinking that defines the direction to take, strategy. And tactics involves concrete actions and steps into implementation in line with the direction. Strategy aligned with the goals, objectives, and tactics is aligned with the strategy, okay? Strategy requires focus on defining the future, while tactics requires day-to-day execution. Strategy is difficult to change, though entirely possible, and tactic is very easy to change. We can adjust it constantly. Strategy needs outward perspective, while tactics needs inward view. Strategy typically formed by leaders within the organization, while tactics typically defined by executed by managers. Okay. Strategy primarily focuses on effectiveness, doing the right thing, while tactics focus on efficiency, doing right with less resources, time, and money. Strategy difficult to measure and evaluate, while tactics easy to evaluate through well-defined metrics. Strategy planning does not include execution details, while tactical plans include timelines and implementation. Strategy is intangible, tactics are intangible. So this is the main difference between one and the other, okay? And we're going to go basically now into more specific things regarding the topic and the main and this video, okay, which are the tactical principles of collective sport. These are principles are for all collective sport, okay? They're general principles, okay? And so don't allow numerical inferiority, avoid numerical equality, and try to create numerical superiority, okay? These will be the general principles of all collective sports, not only football, soccer, but I'm going to correct here. Not only football, soccer, but all collective sports, okay? Okay, so these are the general principles of collective sport. Then we're going to go into the operational principles, okay? So we're going to have an offensive phase and we're going to have a defensive phase. We're not going to talk here about a transition, okay? We're just going to focus on offensive phase and defensive phase. Okay, the first one will keep possession, while the defensive phase will be recuperate possession. Number 2 will be progress in the pitch, while the defensive phase will be prevent opponent progressing in the pitch. Number 3 will be create scoring chances, while the defensive phase will be prevent opponent creating scoring chances. And number 4, the offensive phase will be finishing scoring chances, while the defensive phase will be avoid opponent finishing or scoring chances, okay? Then we're going to focus more on the fundamental principles, which are the ones that we want to focus basically on this video, which are the offensive phase, we're going to have penetration. Okay, the defensive phase, we're going to have containment. The offensive phase, number 2, will be mobility, while the defensive phase will be defensive cover. The offensive phase will be offensive cover, while defensive phase will be balance. The offensive phase will be space, and the defensive phase will be concentration. And this is concentration as far as space, not mental concentration, okay? Reducing the space, okay? Making the space where we play smaller, okay? So these are the basic, specific fundamental principles that we use basically in tactical preparation as far as the attacking phase and the defensive phase, okay? Now, you can use this as a coach, for example, and have different, or you can add maybe 1 or 2 if you feel correct, okay? Well, if your playing model needs it, okay? If it requires it, okay? If your play model requires adding maybe another principle, specific principle or 2, you can do that. And also on the offensive phase or the defensive phase. And also, if you see that you can place on each one, you can keep these, for example, and you can add micro principles inside each one, because this is how we're gonna create the strategical plan for a playing model, right? As far as the offensive and defensive phase. And then you can have micro principles that are relevant to each principle, okay? For example, I don't want to play short, to build up from the back, so I want to play my team to, I don't know, for whatever reason, to start playing in the second and the last third. So I'm going to play long all the time. My team's going to play long. So in penetration, for example, I can create micro principles of how to penetrate the opponent through the flanks or through the middle in the second third or in the last third or whatever, okay, for example, okay, I'm just giving a simple example, okay, and containment, the same thing. For example, containment, in the first third, I'm going to try to cover all the 5 lanes of the pitch, so my central midfielder would get in between the 2 central defenders, the 2 central fullbacks, the 2 center backs. So, whatever you find that your playing model needs, you're going to do this. So you're going to create these micro principles, okay, which are smaller principles created on each fundamental principle, okay? I don't know if I made myself clear. So you can keep these and add small principles, or you can create others which you feel correct. But they have to be tactical. You cannot place, for example, wall passes, okay, in offensive phase, because that's a technical objective. Now, if you're going to work the concept of numerical superiority, of course you're going to work, or the space, you can put wall passes inside space, okay? But when you work, tactically, normally you're going to work how to create space behind the defenders, and there you're going to be working, wall passing, for example, okay, wall passes. Okay, confusing technique, individual, collective with tactics. So here we have the concept of numerical superiority. I think we mentioned that many people of us coaches that normally in Spain, we work not only principles but general concepts, like for example numerical superiority, numerical inferiority, positional superiority, okay, qualitative superiority, okay. So basically these are concepts for us that are basic concepts of the game, and we're also going to work them. So for example here, and we call them concepts, okay. So here we have numerical superiority, okay. The technical objectives will be worked by dragging them. So since we're going to be working the supradimensional tactical principle, by working the supradimensional tactical principle, we're always going to touch different technical aspects or skills, okay, that our team is going to carry out, okay. It's not going to be the objective by itself, the overload, okay. But since we're working, for example, numerical superiority, overload will happen, okay, and we will, of course, try to lead them on these situations and correct them, okay, with guidance, okay, guiding them how they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to move, what are we trying, what's the objective. For example, here's trying to change from a 3v2 to a 2v1, okay. So we're always trying to take also with numerical superiority and qualitative superiority, okay. And the other second part of the exercise, they're going to change immediately to a 2v1. So we're always changing. For example, in this typical session exercise done in a session of speed of the muscle contraction, okay, we're going to be working not only change from attack to defense, change from defense to attack mentally, okay, speed or velocity, okay, but also we're going to start giving them information, okay, and guiding the footballers so that they discover these superiorities, okay. So when they see them in the match, they're going to identify them very easily, very quickly, okay, and they will do it without thinking, which is basically how we play collective sports, without thinking, instantly, okay, preconsciously, okay, in thousands of seconds, okay. So here we will be working overloading, but it's not going to be objective. The objective will be numerical superiority. Of course, these things, what Vitor Frade talks about this, he calls it by arrastre, or by dragging, okay? So you will be working the tactical supradimension, but also you're going to be working numerical superiority, numerical inferiority as well, okay? And also we will be working the defensive phase also, explaining or trying to lead the defender on as far as what they have to do or what we pretend they do, okay? For example, stay in between, for example, the two attackers, okay? And change, of course, try to cover the passing lanes, okay? Numerical equality and positional superiority. So here we have, again, we're working on the concepts of numerical equality, numerical superiority, numerical inferiority, and also now positional superiority. So here you're going to see that very clearly for the ones that don't understand positional superiority. This example I think is very illustrative. You can see clearly, okay, where the player, due to this position on the pitch, has a very high advantage of scoring. Normally, these are related to near the opponent's box or the area where there isn't time for defensive cover. Normally, these are most of the ones that are relevant, okay, because you can create positional superiority in your defensive side of the pitch or in the middle, but you're not going to create generally a big advantage. Well, if you do it near the box, it will be a huge advantage. Okay, so here the same thing. Okay, you're going to have numerical equality, positional superiority, okay, and very simple exercise again on the subdynamic of speed of the muscle contraction. Okay, and you can play around with this task or exercise, creating situations where one of the players can be even more advanced or more close to the goal, and making it more easy or more difficult for the defender or the attacker. Okay, but the main idea is this: that we're going to also always going to be working on tactical concepts or principles. Okay, I'm going to show an example of one of the problems that I see a lot on internet, and these are people that create exercises for whatever reason. Maybe they're very enthusiastic, and it's not our idea is not to criticize anyone, because we're just trying to help out, not attack anyone or criticize anyone. This is a typical example of two lines of four of the blue team. They have possession, and the red team in this example, for example, will try to press in the middle, and if they steal the ball, if they rob the ball, they get it out of pressure. Okay, I'm going to play it first so you can see it. Maybe you won't recognize the problem. And the red team in this case, will attack. Okay, and it will become 10 versus 9 with the goalkeeper. 10 versus 8 plus the goalkeeper. Now, what is the problem with this task or this exercise? Of course, this is going to depend on your playing model, but most playing models, if you're going to press high like this way, and you're going to steal the ball like we show there, you're not going to play back and open up again and look for the longest way to the goal. Because if you do that, the other team, they will reorganize defensively. So this is the big mistake here, for example. It looks very nice. You can see it that the exercise of the task looks very tidy, it looks very nice, but actually, at least as far as normally my playing models, my team would never do this, because if we get the ball out of pressure here, for example, transition, okay, we get the ball out and we look to attack through the longest way to the goal, to the goal of the opponent, okay, this will give the blue team enough time to organize defensively again. So why get the ball out? Why not? We would try normally to attack quickly through the middle and take advantage of a quick numerical superiority or positional superiority, or create numerical superiority in a very short time, in a very short space, okay, and finish the play, but not go back. So remember, I see this problem a lot. I didn't want to place any videos of anyone because, of course, it's not our intention to criticize anyone. But remember that videos, sometimes you have to really analyze them and see if they can be used for your team, because sometimes they may be very nice, they may be very, as far as visually they're very nice, but the information is very contradictory, okay? So you have to be very careful as far as copying. This is something that we see a lot and is kind of dangerous, because you're going to see coaches doing things that make no sense, okay? So in this case, if we're defending high, we're not going to try to take the long way to the goal, because this will give time for the other team to retreat and to organize defensively, okay? For example, there are many examples. Other examples are, for example, attacking actions without opposition, where the team finishes a play and they retreat at full speed behind the middle of the pitch, okay? And of course, this will be contradictory, because if you ask your team, as far as your play model, to immediately press after losing the ball, Okay, you know, you're not going to be. It's going to be, the message is going to be contradictory. Okay. Differences between training in game context and training in context, and also with information or concepts or principles. So the first example on the left is just an intersectorial example of a very, I think it's 8 versus 6. Yeah, 8 versus 6 plus the goalkeeper. Okay, it's a very simple intersectorial exercise. While the one on the right, just by placing an intermittent line in between the box and the middle of the pitch, okay, where the defenders, the midfielders cannot defend, okay, and I'm working here, creating and taking advantage and occupying and using the space between the two central midfielders of the 14 square, okay, the zone 14. Just by placing a line, I changed one exercise where on the left, I'm just working in context, I'm just training in context, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with this, right? But there's a difference between training in context and training with game concepts or with principles, okay? So in my opinion, it's a good beginning to train in context. It's better than running around the pitch and doing things that have nothing to do with football. But of course, this is not the objective. The objective also is to start showing your team, your players, your footballers how we're going to play, how we're going to interact, how we're going to attack. We're going to go through the sides. We're going to try to create numerical superiority on the flanks. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Whatever you're going to do, whatever is the strategy that you have for your playing model, okay, you have to create the task according to the strategy. And this is why I always mention that, of course, you can copy Guardiola or Klopp an exercise where a finishing exercise where there is no strategy involved. But as far as, for example, the build-up, as far as, for example, the creation phase, you have to create your own tasks or exercises because the information that you're going to give your team is going to be unique. Nobody's going to do it the same, okay? So because not only the ideas will be your own, but also the characteristics of the players are going to be unique. You're not going to have Haaland playing another center forward in your team, okay? Only Guardiola has it. So you're not going to create tasks similar to Guardiola because you're not going to have, or for example, the other teammates that they have in Manchester City or Bayern or Real Madrid or Barcelona, whatever team, you know. Or Arsenal, you're going to have different footballers. The characteristics are going to be different. So each team, some players played with wings with opposing leg, for example, like Arsenal, and others don't. So all the characteristics that your team is going to have, they're going to be unique. They're going to be yours. So you have to try to create, especially on the main part of the sessions, they have to be according to your playing model, okay? And remember, like I always say, everyone has a play model. Even if they don't know, they do have a play model. Okay. The different scales between fracting and the different forms of fracting. Let me eliminate this that I forgot to get rid of it. Of fracting. Okay. So what we mean by fracting is basically, maybe the word will be dividing, but dividing will not be the correct word because it will be talking about something static. But fracting will be dividing as far as organizing the sessions, okay? So I have a video on this on my channel. So normally we have several ways of doing it, okay? You can do it by the scales of the team. So you can do, for example, a task which is individual or a group, okay, or sectorial. For example, group will be, for example, the left fullback, the left midfielder, and the left wing, for example. Intersectorial will be, for example, the defensive line and the midfield line, or the line of the midfielders. Or, for example, the defensive line and the wings, for example, or the defensive line and the center forward and the wings, for example. Okay, and collectively, of course, it's a whole team, okay? And sectorial will be only one line, like, for example, only the back four or only the midfielder. Okay, the space on the pitch will be the first third, the second third, or the last third. The information, okay, the concepts or the principles, or macro, meso, micro, and nano principles, The phases or the moments, okay, so for example, you can have an objective where it's changing from defense organization to offensive transition or offensive organization. So you're basically going to be creating tasks where your team is defending, for example, in the second third, and they steal the ball. You create a rule where it's going to be easier for them to rob, to steal the ball, and they have to change to offensive transition, or they have to change to offensive organization, depending on where they steal the ball, okay, or depending how many defenders are behind the ball. I don't know, whatever rule you want to create, okay. So this is basically regarding the information, the phases of the moments of the game, okay. So, and then this here you have the sub phases of the game, which is, for example, if you're going to work on the balance when you're attacking, or you're going to work on, okay, what does the team is going to do immediately after they lose the ball? They're going to press, they're going to stand still, they're going to return, retreat, okay? Or, for example, you build up in the first phase of build up, okay, when you're in your own, playing from the back, from your own goal, okay? Or these will be the sub phases of the game, okay? So according to all of this information, you can create different tasks or exercises for your team. Always take into account this, and always taking into account how your team is going to play. Another thing that I saw recently was that if we could use tactical preparation or structural microcycle for young kids, and of course it's very recommended. Of course, your focuses will not only be tactical, but also be working on technical skills. But remember that technical skills should not be worked only analytically. They have to be worked in real game context. And this, for kids, tactical position or structural microcycle will be excellent, because you're going to be working always in real game context. Okay, so the player, maybe he won't know how to juggle the ball 1,000 times, like Cruyff says, but you don't want him to work in a circus. Okay, football is not a circus. So maybe he won't be able to juggle the ball 1,000 times, but yes, he will be able to execute any technical skill that needed for the game, okay? This is a structure that I had in Spanish of the morphocycle, and I'm going to try to translate it. We have it by principles, by sectors, strategies, okay, a guide, okay, and this will be, for example, playing on Sunday, okay? And we have Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday again, where we have the match again, okay? And normally in the sessions, how according to tactical position, and this is very mainly used I think in most methodologies nowadays, how we normally train. So normally the first session will be resting. This will be the recuperation session on Martes, which is Tuesday, okay? And the spaces will be rather high. Of course, you have many other ways of doing it, but generally, okay, the duration of the exercise will be kind of long, because the intensity is going to be low. Of course, previously, the players that did not play would have to do another task of high intensity training, okay, at least 20, 30 minutes. And then we go into this phase where the players that played normally do it in a rather not very intense way, while the others train in a harder way, okay? And normally, you know, the differences, different ways you can do it. As far as the acquisition sessions, which are the most important ones in my opinion, everything is important, but normally this is where you're going to place most of the work in the week. The tension of the muscle contraction, you're going to see that the spaces are smaller, the intensity is going to be higher, okay? The intensity will be higher, the space is smaller, the complexity of the exercises will be not so high, because the intensity, if it is, will go down, okay? And the stress, since the intensity is going to be very high, is going to be rather a little bit high, but we're going to always try to maintain the information very simple, okay? Now the next section will be, which with the subdynamic is the duration of the muscle contraction. We're going to work more, and in the tension of muscle contraction, we're going to be focusing mainly on small amount of numbers of players, okay? So basically here we will work on rondos or possessions, positional rondos where the intensity is very high, And as we progress in the session, we can work up to intersectorial, okay, up to 8 players on each team, as that's the most. Okay, but most of the times you're going to be working a short amount of players, footballers. On the duration of the muscle contraction, we're going to be working high, big spaces, big concepts, or great principles, okay, of the model, of the playing model. Okay, big spaces. The intensity is not going to be so high, although it's high because it's the same as the game. Okay. Before, many years ago, we would call it the game of football, the day of football. So in here, normally you play full pitch or 3/4 a pitch, 2/3 a pitch. Okay. And basically, we're going to work here the macro principles. Okay. The next one is the speed of the muscle contraction. Here, the spaces are going to be similar to tension, but longer, because we want the player to have many sprints, okay, but always with tactical actions, okay, so actions related to the game, like I showed an example before, okay, and the duration is going to be rather short, the pauses are going to be very high, it's going to be very, very intermittent, okay, and the complexity is not going to be very high as well. And then we have the preparation of the match, where we're going to have the repetitional strategy. We're going to go over what we're going to do, what the characteristics of the opponent, how they play, what they do, what we want to do, how we our plan A or plan B or whatever. Okay, and then the next day the match. So this is basically the whole structure of a normal morphocycle that I think we mentioned before in the examples of tactical preparation. You can see my channel examples. Okay. And basically, this is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, share, like, so we can have more subscribers, have more people watching the videos, using the videos and the information that we have here, and it will help them out as far as coaching, so we can grow the community and become better, improve the game, basically. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see you soon again. Bye-bye. Take care.